Hi guys, so I'm here to do my July currently reading video. It's, you know, that time, mid-July. I am reading 3 things. It does seem that 3 seems to be my usual active reading amount. Usually one's an audiobook and then the other 2 are usually physical books, but sometimes there's 2 audiobooks and 1 physical book. And they're all books I read in kind of different circumstances, so I'll talk about that whilst I talk about the books as well. So first up is the book that I am reading in hardback form, well in a physical copy, and that is American War by Omar El Akkad. This is a proof copy. It doesn't come out till September in the UK. It's published by Picador, although I think it might be out in the US. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a, you know, speculative future dystopian-esque story set during the Second American Civil War and presumably afterwards. Obviously I haven't got to the end yet, so I'm not entirely sure. But the year is 2070 something and it goes into the 2080s and the 2090s, so not quite 100 years from where we are now. The Civil War itself is in part a result of a disagreement between sustainable fuels, but obviously there's a lot more going on there. And one of the things I love about this story is that it is littered with fake historical documents that the author has made up to go alongside the story, and that gives you a real insight into what's going on, how this war came to be, how it unfolds, the different factions, the big events, whilst in the middle of all this following one character's life during this civil war. This is a young girl called Sarat who we meet before she's even turned 10, and then we follow her and her family as they move to a refugee camp and so on and so forth. And it is really quick reading, but in a really good way, as in you get really wrapped up in it and just find yourself flipping from page to page to page. At least that's what I found. I think I'm reading this at quite a fast pace for myself, and I'm really intrigued by the story and where it goes. It's also eerie because the author's just done a very good job at convincing the reader, and I feel almost as if the future has been predicted. I mean, of course, always when I read a dystopian, you can see elements of how this is where we could go one day, and also things that I want to actively prevent by, you know, engaging in the political culture around me. So I don't want to be too pessimistic, but it's a very convincing narrative of a potential future that we would obviously hope to avoid. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I actually got to meet the author of this at work because Picador is an imprint at my work, and he was such a fascinating person to talk to, and this is a very impressive debut novel, so really enjoying that one. For audiobook on my phone, I have just started listening to an audiobook that I cannot stop listening to, and I should have known this would happen once I started it, but for some reason it took me a little while, and that is Chavs by Owen Jones. So this book wasn't originally out in audiobook, so I don't know when it came out, but it was a couple of months ago. And as soon as I saw it had come out, I downloaded it on Audible because I was so excited. I read Owen Jones's other non-fiction book, The Establishment, on audiobook, so I listened to it and found that a really good way to consume the information. I think in a way because it's journalism, because I enjoy watching Owen Jones, I'm a big news watcher. I just, for some reason, it really works for me listening to his books. I feel really engaged with them, and also it's an easy way to fit in non-fiction, so I find I'll listen to audiobooks a lot when I'm doing things around the house or I'm walking places, and I'm enjoying this audiobook so much that I actively want to walk places even if it takes me longer, so I can listen to it more than I would on public transport. And I have no doubt I'll finish this in the next few days. So the subtitle of Chavs is The Demonisation of the Working Class, and I think that's a pretty good summary of the book. It is all about classism, it's about the kind of breakdown of the welfare state and how that affects people, and the desire of some people to distance themselves from the working classes. He wrote it in a time when people were sort of denying the existence of class culture and trying to imply that pretty much everyone these days is middle class and that there's no traditional working class anymore. There just remains this kind of subgroup of chavs who are, you know, lazy layabouts that choose to not progress beyond the circumstances that they find themselves in, which is obviously ludicrous. And it's interesting because this audiobook has the then added 2012 introduction and the then added 2016 introduction, and in each of those introductions the political climate had changed a little bit again. So they affected your reading of the book, and Owen Jones wanted to talk a little bit about that. And now again, 2017, if you're in the UK, you'll know, again, politics feels completely different from last year. Things are moving very quickly, and again, it's really interesting to be reading a book that came out a few years ago in the current climate. I think there's actually a little bit less of this denial of class going around than there perhaps was when Owen Jones was writing this book, but that doesn't make it any less of an important piece of work. And if you're not familiar, if you're not from the UK, chavs is a derogatory word that originates itself in, you know, a way to demarcate the working classes. And although some people would deny that when they use it they are making a comment on the working class, I don't think they're recognising the origin of that word or actually how terrible classism is. I think there's this weird tendency among some people to be super offended by racist language and homophobic language, but they don't have the same attitude towards classist language, which I think is in part the media and politicians and the way class is being talked about and almost tried to be brushed under the carpet. I'm just going off on a bit of a tangent, but you know, this is what the book's about, and this is obviously how it's, you know, resonating with me at the moment. And so far I think it's a really important book that I would urge everybody to read, particularly those that live in the UK, but even outside of the UK, although the examples Owen Jones talks about aren't going to be the same as in your country. I think the issue of classism is certainly something that exists beyond the UK. And if you're not familiar, Owen Jones is a British journalist. I feel like all of that is a really messy way of explaining the book, but it's a currently reading video. They're meant to be chatty and talk about feelings, aren't they? So last but certainly not least is this book, which I was reading in my last currently reading video, but it's a big book. So it's The Corn King and the Spring Queen by Naomi Mitchison. I am further into this one now. It was first written in the early 1900s. Naomi Mitchison is a sort of classic fantasy-esque Scottish author. This book, I say fantasy-esque because it's set in antiquity in the 2nd millennium BC in what reads like a very historical ancient world, but Naomi Mitchison has created her own culture and, you know, plopped them in the middle of all of that, and within that culture there is magic. So there it's a little bit of a mixture of like historical fiction and fantasy, and it's so good. I am really enjoying it. Like I said, it's very big. The text in this copy is tiny, so it's taken me a while, but I am really enjoying it. I love both the exploration of antiquity in it. I think it's a really interesting way of bringing antiquity to life and doing something really creative with it, and I love that, and I love that I can observe these little references to things I'm familiar with. Not that you need to be familiar with antiquity to read the book, but that's always an added bonus for me. And I also love this, what I feel like it's exploring in one of the main characters' life, Erif Dare, who is one of the main female characters, who has been pressured by the men in her family to marry the chieftain of their community, Tarek, so that she can use her magic, because only women have magic in this culture, to kind of overthrow him so that her male relatives can take over from him. And it's kind of the way that she is being manipulated as a woman, despite having this power that the men don't have, but because she still feels as if they're in charge, they use this power by using her. And I really like that. I think that's really interesting. I'm intrigued to see where it goes and how the characters develop as the story continues on. I think a lot's going to happen in it. Still got many hundreds of pages left. Like I said though, I'm not rushing it. I'm just enjoying it, and that's fine. But I can already tell this is going to be a book that I remember for a long time. And I'd probably recommend to a lot of people because I think it will be enjoyed by a lot of people. It's very well written, it has a literary feeling to it, but it's also historical, it's also kind of high fantasy, so I can see it appealing to a lot of different people. And because I'm somebody that likes a wide range of genres, I really enjoy that combination of things in it. But that is everything I am currently reading. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'd love to chat about these books with any of you, and if you're reading anything really good at the moment, do let me know. Or if you're reading anything really bad, I'd also love to know as well. Sometimes our strongest opinions are about the books we don't like, aren't they? Until next time though, happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye guys!